started. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn. I'm Kevin Holbrook. Most of you have probably sat in on a session, Lunch and Learn session prior, but if you have not, Lunch and Learns are our way of giving back on a topic that maybe was brought to our attention, something you wanted to find out a little more information about. And today this was a customer request for placing tables and assemblies. And this topic, I would say that in all the times that these have been functionality, I've not seen a single user putting tables and assemblies, but I think there are absolutely very good use cases for it, and the ability to reuse those tables is going to be important as well. And I'll flesh out everything that I'm talking about here in just a moment. A couple of housekeeping issues. If you have any questions during the presentation, if you could just post them in the questions section of the GoToWebinar window, I will answer those at the end of the session today and try to get you any extra information that you do need. So for our agenda today, I want to talk about why tables and assemblies. What is the reason that SOLIDWORKS has even given us the functionality to be able to put a table in the assemblies? I want to talk about what the currently supported table types are. We're going to go through bill of material, title block, and general tables, which are the three supported types that we currently have. And then I want to talk about, as I progress in this conversation, how do we use those downstream? Does it make sense for us to put together a bill of material and an assembly if I'm going to have to just create a drawing anyway and create a bill of material? And the reality, as you'll see through the presentation, is that your effort is not completely wasted. We can utilize those things in other areas, although it isn't as widespread reuse as you might want or consider. But I'll break down where it is and isn't. So let's just jump to SOLIDWORKS for a moment. There's one topic we kind of have to get out of the way because it affects how we deal with other items that we add to parts and assemblies. Now, I know this webinar is titled, placing tables and assemblies, but honestly, you can place tables and parts as well. So let's talk about adding other items to a part or assembly for a moment and where they go. Now, one thing that has been part of the software for, I don't know, more than 5 releases, I'm sure of that, is the annotation folder just below it has something we call Annotation Views. Now, I bring this up because essentially we're going to add a table, which is an annotation, to the model itself, and we need to tell the software where it's going to go and how it's going to be shown to the user. Now, what an annotation view is, essentially it's a grouping of items that belong to a view, telling software, the SOLIDWORKS software, if I show this view, these are the annotations I want to show. Now, currently you can see that right now the arrow is pointing to my unassigned items. This just means that that's the active view, and if I just rotate my model a little bit, you can see all of my dimensions are part of that unassigned. Now, how do we go about moving something from unassigned to another view? For instance, if I want this to be in the right view or front view, I think that's my front. If I want these to belong to the front view, how do I get those changed? Well, very simply, there's a couple ways. If I right-click on any dimension, I can select an annotation view through my right-click, and by selecting that annotation view, it moves that particular dimension to that annotation view. Now, let me just activate the front here for a moment and hide the unassigned. That should have moved those. So let me just try to move this one here. All right. Yeah, it doesn't seem to want to be moving these. Shoot. See how when I right-click on this one, I can change and move it to unassigned? and it disappears because my unassigned view is not showing. It looks like these are all assigned to the front view currently, and that's why they're not moving. But we assign the annotation to a view that we can essentially hide or show. I'm going to activate an area we call the notes area. You can see front disappears because all the annotations are tied to that. Now let's take this conversation to tables for a moment. So I have an assembly here, and we want to start out with bill of material tables. If you did not know, the same insert tables menu that you have for drawings is accessible in the part or assembly model. And we're used to going there for design tables, which is a whole nother conversation. I'm going to focus on the other three, bill of materials, title block, and general. Now, bill of materials, when I get into the dialog, it's exactly as it is on the drawing. I first would need to give it a template. There's a little button here to open a template, so browse to it. We have all the functionality of top-level parts are indented, dealing with multiple configurations. At the bottom, dealing with the border, same thing we have on the drawing. But the reality of this is when I accept it, I now get a bill of materials that I can place in the graphics area of the SOLIDWORKS model. Now, what I need to know, however, is where that got placed on an annotation view. For instance, if I start to hide these other views, you can see what just happened there. I hid the right view and the table disappeared. Okay, let me just show that view for a moment. Now this happens to be on the right view, which notice what happens because it belongs to the right view, it actually turns with the model. And I really don't want that to happen. What I want to happen is I want the bill of materials to the screen and present itself no matter what orientation I'm looking at the current model. So how would we do that? Well, let's just right-click also on the bill of material like we did with the dimensions, and notice the same option here, change annotation view. Now, I'm not going to change it to one of the other views like front or right, and I'm going to change it to an area we call the notes area. Now, currently in 2016, there's one annotation view called the notes area. In 2017, which will be out in just a couple weeks, you can create more or as many notes areas as you want. Now, as soon as I assign it to a notes area, this is the software being told that this must stay flat to the screen. And now, that's not wanting to do it. That should turn. Oh, let's see here. Let's hide you. There we go. So when it's moved to the notes area, you can see it acts a little bit differently. It stays flat on the screen. You still will be able to move and position this. When you zoom in and out, the table zooms right along with it. So you want to kind of set the scale to match how you would typically view the assembly. Now, if I select the upper left-hand corner of the bill of material, one of the things that you'll see in here is Bom Scaling. Now, I don't like to use the slider bar at the bottom because the increments seem to go too fast. But if I use the spin box here, I can go ahead and increase or decrease the scaling of the bill of material. Now, the formatting of the bill of material is very similar to what we have on a drawing with the same functions for font and changing sizes and column widths and so on. We're not going to cover that at this point. If I wanted to have multiple configurations, I could go ahead and turn on the multiple configurations. It supports that as well. The flyout for the bill of material, which we're used to having on a drawing, which allows me to see if it's a part or a toolbox or a sub-assembly, will have the same functions that they have on a SOLIDWORKS drawing. So I can right-click on any of these. I can go exclude from BOM. I can go to my component option window and dissolve sub-assemblies and all the functions you would typically want to do. Now, one thing that you won't see in an assembly BOM versus a drawing is the balloon status. Remember, when you are in a drawing and you create a bill of materials and you add balloons, it provides you with a status as to whether or not that particular item has been ballooned. Another difference or variation that you'll see between the two bill of materials is that in a drawing, we typically set an anchor point. And an anchor point essentially helps us to choose the stationary corner that we want in a particular model. So if I add a column, which direction is it going to grow? Well, in the assembly BOMs, when I insert a column, always the upper left-hand corner is stationary. So as soon as I add a column, it's going to go ahead and add it and push it to the right and down. The table is going to grow down when we add more items. So it's pretty much the what we're used to as far as how it grows, but the corner to the left is automatic. Now that the table's in the assembly model, you'll see a folder in the feature tree titled Tables. And what's neat about that is it will list the bill of materials that's a table in here, but it also will tell you which configurations the table's active for. Now you can see this says 2 configurations because I have the 220 long and the 150 long, which is 2 variations of this pin showing on the bill of materials. If I happen to remove one of those configurations, obviously the bill of material updates, but it lists next to the bill of material the configuration that was used to create that. Another nice thing is that the cells are live just like they are inside the SOLIDWORKS drawing. So if I happen to double-click a cell, it does tell me that it's linked to a property in the mode. If you break the link, you can't restore it. So the same kind of linking, updating functionality is in here as is in the drawing. So that's another nice aspect to it. At this point, one other function that's really nice to be able to do, if you right-click on the table at the assembly level, there's a new option that we don't have at the drawing level, which is Show Table in New Window. Now, for me, if I'm working in the assembly, I may want to, have that table off to the side so I can watch it update and not have to see the bill of material table. And maybe when I'm done putting together my assembly, I'll go back to where I was. Now let's talk about going back to where I am. So if I'm doing my current assembly work and continuing this thing, I can watch off to the right, see my bill of material kind of form itself. When I'm done, all I have to do is close the bill of material window, and what's nice is it pops back in right where it was. So it's not like I have to reapply the bill of material or reformat in any way. It just gives it an extra window that makes it a little more capable. Now, one of the things on a drawing of a bill of material we use often is the export options of both Excel and CSV file formats. If your bill of materials are correct, obviously you can export those formats and maybe use them in your ERP or to push data into other business systems. Well, we don't want to lose that capability here, so SOLIDWORKS obviously thought of that. If we right-click and go to Save As, we can save the new format, the table template, if I wanted to. Notice the extension for that. But if I pull down this menu, we actually have more capability of saving out the bill of material from the SOLIDWORKS assembly model than we do in a drawing. Now in a drawing, it's Excel, it's CSV, There might even be text file, but look at that, DXF, DWG, eDrawing. We can save the bill of material in PDF. Okay, so keep in mind that that functionality does exist and is a little more enhanced than you would expect it to be inside assemblies. So I've done all this work. I've created a bill of material. I've got it in my assembly. What good is it? Well, the first thing is, if you're communicating with eDrawings, it's really nice because I can just publish an eDrawing, and I'll just publish one here just to show you the capability. It's over here, sorry. And you'll notice that the tables are supported in eDrawings. So if you have an outside vendor and you haven't developed maybe a full drawing or don't need a full drawing, you can send them the SOLIDWORKS assembly with bill of material, and it is supported as far as communication. Now, another reason why is, what if we could reuse this bill of material on a SOLIDWORKS drawing? What if I wasn't duplicating efforts in both ends? Well, let's take a look at this. Let's go ahead and make a drawing from this. We'll go ahead and maybe use a B-size landscape and place at least one view on here. Now, when I go to add the table at the drawing level and I select the view of the model, if you look to the left here, under my BOM options, I can create a new table, or notice the option to copy an existing table. Now, copying existing table will bring down a menu with the bill material tables that exist for that model, and there's an option to link it. Okay, so let's go ahead and accept this for a moment. You can see that it's the same bill of material that we had on the solid model, and it brought that information in. Now, it warrants us to have a conversation about updating and formatting and those types of things. If for some reason, let's just jump back to my assembly here. Let's say we've got a new hex screw in here, and I'll just pop one in. You'll notice that the quantities automatically update. We're now at 3 of these units. As I add more, it automatically updates. When I go to the drawing, because of the link, okay, it auto updates as well. Okay, so these two are linked together. So the information will update. Now, here's one difference. Even though the data will update, the formatting will not. For instance, if I decide I want this weight column to be something like this on the drawing, when I jump back to the assembly, you'll notice it's not. So the formatting holds true in the assembly, and it holds true in the drawing. Therefore, really, and that's what you want to do. We want to set this up to look good in the assembly, and then you want to set up your columns and your widths and your fonts and all that stuff to look good on your drawing. So there's a slight overlap in formatting, but the data is going to be synchronized and reused across the way. When it comes to balloons, I do have the ability to insert balloons into the assembly. It's Insert Annotations Balloon. I select the location I want the balloon by attaching it to a component. One thing that you will see with the balloon is right here at the bottom, the balloon text source. So where am I getting the number for that item? Is it from the assembly structure, so it's ignoring the bill of material, or is it going to tie itself to the bill of material? Now, this happens to be the same. If I were to have reordered that, you'll see the number physically change. So there's absolute benefit to being able to put this thing in the assembly ahead of time. If I wanted to hide this bill of material, I can right-click on the tables and say hide table, or since it belongs to the notes area, I can just go to the notes area and hide it as well. So there's several different ways for you to hide and show and make sure that it only does what you want it to do, but functionality-wise, it gives you the same functionality that you get in a drawing, and I can reuse it. Okay? Now, I think that into itself, just having it in both spots is reason alone to want to be able to do this. Okay, let's move on to the second table type for a moment. Close a few of these. I'm going to just grab another part here. And this time I am going to do it on a part. I want to talk about title block tables, and we're going to kind of follow the theme of, you know, what other information can I start to store in the parts and assemblies? Maybe you're not ready to go with our MBD product, which our MBD, model-based definition, gets you so close to being able to put all the PMI, the manufacturing information, the tables, the notes, surface finish, title block, all into the model that maybe you don't need a drawing, but maybe you're not ready for that. Here's another example, an example table that may get you closer. If I insert a title block table, it, just like we do with the bill of material, requests a table template, except this one is different in that it does not require a template to get started. Now, maybe you're creating a title block from scratch. So if I'm creating it from scratch, all I would have to do is specify what my original table size needs to be. I'm going to go 8 columns and 8 rows. I can set what the border is as well as the border thickness. And when I accept it, it says, hey, you know what? I know this thing needs to go to an annotation view. Where do you want it to go? Now, just like we did with the bill of materials, if I put this on the notes area, it stays stationary, and I can go ahead and start to develop a title block that I can store within the model, whether it's a part or assembly, that can be very much like a title block for a drawing. For instance, I may have, you know, company name over here. I can Windows and hold down my left mouse. By dragging the mouse, it will highlight all the cells. And one of the options is to merge cells. Now, merging cells allows me to create the areas in which we're going to put data. Now, one might be company name, this might be description, we might put revision down here. Now, everyone has their own title block and their own way of doing it. But here's a nice formatting tool to create something similar to a title block. Maybe we have sign-offs in here, so we want to group, 3 different sign-off areas that we'll want to match up for signatures and names. I want maybe an area for specifying tolerances. I'll group this whole thing in. Now that I got this maybe where I want it, this is where I can start to add other information. For instance, here I might have my corporate logo. Now, if I just click on the cell, you'll notice up here there really doesn't show an option to insert an image. However, if I just go up to Insert, Object, what I'm going to be able to do is, using the Insert Object function in SOLIDWORKS, create a logo from a file. I'm just going to browse to a file that I have here. Let's see. Let's grab something. Here's a nice little bitmap. And when I say OK to this, it brings in the bitmap file from the object. Now, what I do, and what I would likely recommend, is make sure you create the bitmap, the approximate size of the cell that you're going to use. This makes it easier for scaling, but this will give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, that we can do these types of things. Okay, just like you would on a title block. Now, what about the data? Okay, if I double-click a cell, one of the options that you'll notice is link to property. Just like we do link a note on a drawing, if I use link to property, here's where I can come in here and say, you know what, I want you to link this to the description of the par. Now, if a description exists, it will push into that field. We still have our, our alignment tools and my center aligning in that particular cell, and it will drive that data if there is a description in place. Now, I'm pretty sure, let me just see here, if you just fill out the property, you can see there it will drive to the particular cell. Once again, the table shows up as a table with a different icon under the tables folder, so you can distinguish between them. In the end, I'm just going to delete this one here and just show you a little different one that's done. If I insert a title block table and just browse to my title block table, and there is a template in the installation directory, potentially you could have something that looks like this that's stored with the model, and again, it has the same scaling options. So if I wanted to make this much smaller to accommodate the positioning of the component, okay, I can go ahead and do that. Let's take a look at the right-click options for this. There is showing the table in a new window, and when I do the Save As on these tables, it has the same export functionality. Now, what you don't get with a title block table is the ability to export this to a drawing. You wouldn't necessarily need to, because your templates already have all these links and everything set up. So this is a specific tool set up for using in a parts and assemblies. So the reuse is not necessary, I guess. There's really no duplication of efforts. As long as everything is linked to custom properties, it will push both in here and into the title block. If I publish an e-drawing, as expected, okay, the e-drawing also supports the title block table. Okay, so you can push some of that information in there. And I think about when you're communicating some of this stuff, especially the 3D model to an outside vendor, where you don't have tolerances listed, there's no title block, no drawing, and you might be sending this to a machine shop. They're going to machine off the 3D model. This is a way of getting some of that other information provided to them. Okay. So title block tables, useful, I think. The last table type that I want to talk about today is general tables. Now, general tables obviously show anything you want, and we really covered a majority of this conversation. There can be a template for a general table, which essentially has predefined columns and rows, or I can use just my column selector here to choose the table, and I can also put it in the notes area. Now, here's where I was talking about with 2017 being released shortly. I probably wouldn't want it on the same notes area as the other table. I might want another annotation view, but currently in 16, it would be on the same one. And these fields will work exactly like they do in a bill of material. I can link the property. I have the ability to add symbols, change my colors, and so on. It does show up in the tables folder, as you would expect, and the right click of the general table save as functionality has the exact same functionality of the other two. So adding things like measurement data, test data, variations of sizes, any kind of data, and I believe, let me just try this here, you can still do the merge cell in the general table as well. So this functionality is actually there for all the table types, including the bill of material. However, I would avoid that on the bill of material. I'm not sure where that would come in unless you're adding a column of manual data. maybe compiling hole sizes or something like that. So this is the topic I wanted to cover. Hopefully you can see that adding tables to parts and assemblies is not a futile effort. You can reuse, especially the bill of materials downstream. The title block provides extra information for anyone viewing the model. You're not duplicating effort because once it's set up, you just insert the title block, it fully populates itself, so no extra effort. And the general table allows you to put that information directly on the model itself. Now this table, what I should try here, and I didn't try this prior to the session. What if I copy and pasted it? I want to see if I can copy and paste the reuse of the general table here. Let's see. And do a Control V, look at that. So the general table, when set up, can be copy and pasted to the drawing if necessary. So there you go, three tables, the ability to reuse all three in some way, including e-drawing support. I'm hoping this is something that might be worth your while. So that's the end of what I had to present today. If you have a topic like this was customer suggested, and you'd like it covered for Lunch and Learn, we try to keep it to one small area, 30 to 40 minutes or so. I know I went a little bit over today. Just email me at kevin@CADimensions.com. I'll be glad to take a look at whether that topic would suit a session like this and let you know. I do have a few questions in the queue here. First one, can you take an existing BOM table from the drawing and add to the assembly? That is not possible. So this would have to start at the assembly level and be added to the drawing later on. Okay. Next question, publish an e-drawing from an assembly with the BOM table in it. The balloon showed up in the e-drawing, but not in the table. Check the annotations, they are visible. This is something I may have to look at, Matt. I will make note and get back to you. If you could just send me the example at kevin@CADimensions.com. So, like I said, this is kind of an area that could be used, maybe isn't used. So, you may find some things in there that are inconsistent, but from what I went through, the interfaces are the same. They should do the same things, but we kind of got to flesh this thing out and make some use of it. Another question, can you do this with a drill hole table? And the only thing you can do is a general table. You can't put a drill hole table in a part or assembly. Although we could put an enhancement request for that, that would be where I go with that. So, the hope is with MBD and the way that SOLIDWORKS is really trying to allow us to put as much as possible into the parts and assemblies. I would have to assume that all of these things are going to come to light, and we're going to get some sort of support out of each of them. So, we just got to adopt it and start working on it and show that it's useful, and I think we can go from there.
Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and our blog for more great content by clicking on the links in the description below.